5 years ago, on September 21st, 2016, I published my first video. It was my goal from the beginning to do this for only 5 years and teach everything there is to know about highlining. And well, here we are. And for my anniversary, I thought I would make a video sharing the 5 years, the zigzag journey it's been, and talk about how I'm very, very done with how not to highline and my plans for how not to. They sound similar, but it's quite different.
Before we get started, I'll show you a couple cool things here. The video turned out to be quite long. I didn't want to cut anything out. Everything is really crucial for the story. And if you're interested in the story, just set the video on in the background and listen to it. Otherwise, skip out to our next video. We've got over 300 for you to choose from. But today is a different day. But before we get into that, we got the top of the drop tower up. It's being held up basically by industrial slings and soft releases. And then I'm gonna get some cables, secure the thing down. I'm gonna go up there, adjust things, and just lots and lots of details to get the thing finalized. And I went to Lodestar the other day, and basically we discovered that the power supply for the laptops set off a magnetic field, and possibly my DC lights create a magnetic field that jack up the data. So at least we know the problem there. I'm going to tinker with how I can still have both. And Rachel Saker's almost done with our caving section of the bolting Bible, so we'll have a 200-page bolting Bible in just a few weeks here. And the first batch of the line scale 3s are stuck in China. And so once they get shipped out, we'll have those and start a lot of videos I've been planning once we get those. But now I'm going to just dive into my story in detail from before I started the channel, why I did it, why we had the Church of Slack Life, why we did Slack Life Global, why I got divorced, why I decided to start How Not to Invest, how I met Bobby, and just every detail in the channel for the next hour and a half. So enjoy, or see you in the next video.
So I started climbing and highlining in 2005, and I was super inspired by Dean Potter and Andy Lewis, who I saw in this new thing called YouTube. The learning curve for highlining was so intense because we didn't understand gear. There was zero information about it, and I had to basically relearn how it was done because you could see that people were doing it and you had to reverse engineer it. And so, yeah, I didn't send my first highline until 2011, 6 years after I basically started slacklining. Now, I was so bad at this when I first started that I didn't even know the backup line went under the main line. How efficient, who would have thought? But for most of those years, I was mostly focused on big walls. I've completed 17 big walls. I've made 27 attempts, and it seemed to be more dangerous than our new and improved highlining systems we were creating, where everything was really redundant. And if you felt like it was safe, you'd get on. And if you didn't, you didn't. Big walling, you kind of find yourself in a pickle all the time. So I basically did my last big wall in 2016, where I climbed the Zodiac clean without hammers. And I was really proud of that, but I was kind of over it and really dove into highlining, even though I started a lot in 2013. And so for the last 7 years, I've been highlining a ton. Now, I slowly progressed in this. I'm not naturally good at it. I'm still technically not good at it by most standards. But in September 2015, I was super discouraged because I didn't get a new PR, or I didn't walk a longer line than previously for 2 years. And that really was getting to me. And I'd like to see at least little micro progress. I mean, maybe that's why YouTube keeps me engaged. But I walked almost a 60-meter line after saying this is the last try I'm ever going to give it. And I meant it. I was not going to continue highlining at the level I was if I wasn't going to be able to walk this line. Now, this is before lines were loose and backups were even looser. So this, I almost threw in the towel. And that is what the image that was the header for so many years, where it's just me walking through the sky as nothing but blue. And that was at Smith Rock, and it was the King line. I really liked the image because it was just such a pivotal point in my life. So it'd look very different today if I didn't send that line. I was shaking so bad and had send anxiety so bad, and I screamed so loud when I got to the end of that line. Very exciting. So fast forward a year, and I am now rigging tons of new lines in Yosemites. I'm finally feeling confident, very confident in the rigging. The walking, never really, I never got good at it. I have walked a 300-meter line and a 100-meter line, but it's usually under 100 meters. I can't consistently do that. However, when I rigged Vernal Falls in Yosemite, I did it with cams and a flaring crack, and it was very complicated. It took 2 trips to actually get the line across, and we had it up and down in 24 hours. It was a beautiful project, and I felt like I made it. You just, most highliners have that experience where they'll do a project that's hard enough to where like, oh, I'm finally good at this. Doesn't mean you know everything, but it's just you feel more confident than you ever have in the past. Now, Michael Milner and Scott Hong, who I did that project with, and Cam Wiglin, basically, they didn't know how to rig very well, and they kind of scoured the internet for information. And I realized in 2016 that there was still no information online. The Slackline channels, Balanced Community and Selectivity, really weren't covering the topic because I'm assuming liability, because they were obviously good at highlighting, but they didn't share anything at the time. And another side note, if you're not in the Highline community, the Vernal Falls project had a little drama around it. It was our first project that was like really announced to the whole Slackline world because Obama visited the valley. He was supposed to go up one trail, went up our trail, and it became a cluster. And because of that one incident, it kind of triggered a spark in a room full of gas about Highlines no longer being allowed to be rigged in Yosemite over waterfalls. So Upper Yosemite Falls was rigged, I think, 30 times that spring. So it was just like not good timing to have that much attention towards highlining and waterfalls. So they kind of just pushed us off to the rostrum and Taft, and kind of we've laid low since. But now we're making progress and stuff. Not getting into that, but it is going to get better over time. But that kind of went up, and all of this happened at the same time, and this is very crucial to know. I was addicted, like literally addicted to YouTube at the time. I was a very devout, hardcore Christian up to this moment in time, fall of 2016, summer of 2016. And I was watching 3 hours of YouTube a day on atheist cartoon videos. And it's at my level. And it made me think for the first time, honestly, ever. And I liked it, didn't know what to feel. I had lots of feelings. And it was just, they were questioning things that I didn't have an answer for, and I had an answer for everything. I mean, look at me here. So through watching those videos, I did eventually become an atheist, and I don't really bring that up because I don't really think I'm apolitical and irreligious when it comes to this channel, my audience, and things like that. I'm not an evangelical atheist. I don't care what you believe in. If you're happy with what you believe in, don't change. It's a pain in the emotional ass. But I'm not as bitter as I was for the first, I spent 30 years of my life as a Christian. And basically, now that I've processed, I'm more like a spiritual atheist. I don't think there's a God, but I think things are connected. And I'm like a hopeful nihilist. I think the sun's going to burn everything up, but I think we give life purpose. I think that's great. So, not trying to push my beliefs on you, but that is kind of where I'm at, and it's relevant to the story. So, YouTube is my life. My friends don't know how to highline, and I feel like I'm on fire. Enter September 21st, 2016. September 8th, I start the channel, How Not to Highline. And September 21st, I release my first video. I banked, I think, 4 or 6 videos before I released the first one, so I can consistently upload every week because that was the goal. Now, to give a little life context here, I was 32 years old, and I was running an 8-man crew painting, and I was almost done remodeling my van. I kind of wanted a painting van and a van life van. And yeah, I'm always busy, but I was pretty busy when I started this thing. And so I started uploading every other week, and I knew I could maintain that. And that's something that was important to me, is not starting something I couldn't maintain. So now at this point, I am dating Kim Wiglin for about 2 years, and we are living together in Lodi. You'll see how that ties in throughout the story. Now, I wasn't quite sure how to deal with the liability aspect of teaching dangerous stuff on the internet. I really just didn't. So I figured that's honestly why it's called How Not To. It's also called How Not To because I learned every way you can do it wrong. And I thought that was just kind of a funny pun. Or in conjunction with that, I also ended every video with, therefore you shouldn't highline. I was very highline centric I wanted to get Highline information on the internet. Wasn't aiming for subs. I wasn't aiming for views. I didn't get them. So I got the information online. I wish I did a more thorough job, but I just, rabbit, squirrel. And I was just always running off on a new tangent niche inside the sport rather than just keeping it to the basics and then slowly going into the niche. But either way, we more or less have it on the internet. So why do I release on Wednesday? Well, it's very thoroughly thought out and scientific. It's the day my garbage went out. So I wouldn't forget to post. Also, I figured people were climbing or slacklining on the weekend and they were, at home on a Wednesday board and could use a little entertainment. I've always released at 6:30 in the morning because it was before I went to work. And also that way Europe could watch the videos at the same time America could, and then Australia would just have to wait till the next day. But if I released in the middle of the day, Europe wouldn't be able to see it till the next day. So I don't know if all this matters. The algorithm kind of does what it wants. Put out good content, people will subscribe. It's pretty hard to guess that kind of stuff. Now, I would film between 2 and 3 p.m. in my garage because that is when the sun would reflect off my car and give me the best lighting with my DSLR that I was using at the time without a mic. Now, I don't use a mic now because I'm super close to my phone. We'll get into that later. But the microphone is terrible on a DSLR. And I basically eventually improved by getting a Rode mic on top. But I was in an echoey garage. So I ended up putting blankets on the ground, blankets on the walls. I just kept struggle busing my way through the thing. But I would like write down everything and record one line at a time, take the SD card out, go into the computer into the other room, put it and edit it in, watch the whole thing, and then go record the next line. That's why I could only post once every 2 weeks. Now I'm still not as good as I want to be in front of a camera, but man, I just feel like it's so much easier to just spit stuff out. And people want a more conversational style video anyways. The end jingle that you see now used to be my intro. That's why I kind of keep it at the end of videos for nostalgia. And I'll probably eventually eliminate it some way. I kind of want to just end the videos. I'm not going to have long intros or long endings anymore. And I don't know if I'm going to include the bloopers. I think people like that. Let me know if you guys like that kind of stuff. But that used to be my intro for every video, was the how not to highline kind of thing. I spliced and diced a song so like the algorithm wouldn't know that I stole the song, and the animation was like the first one I picked. I mean, I tried really hard. It's just like, I just wasn't good at it. I'm still not that great at it. I was also editing with Power Director, which is really a crappy editing software, but I only had to pay once $100 for it instead of the $30 a month I'm paying for Adobe Premiere now. And well, it's worth using. But yeah, at the time, this was just supposed to be a hobby, trying to keep it as cheap as possible. Now let's cringe for just a second and watch a few seconds of my very first video. So how important is it to pad a highline? What's the right way to do it? Are there wrong ways to do it? Check it out on this episode of How Not to Highline. Welcome to my garage, where we're going to discuss how important padding is, what types of padding there is, how to pad an anchor, and how to pad your webbing. And also, how not to pad. Did you know I always intended on deleting the first 10 videos? I was just throwing them out there. There weren't that many views. I was like, whatever, I don't care what 100 people think. Never did delete them. Now I'm showing them to you here. Great. But moving on. Kim and I got engaged I proposed to her on Andy's Net and GGBY. And that year I got to meet Andy for the first time, which was super rad because he inspired me to do a lot of the stuff I was doing. A few months later, we got to actually do a gig in Mexico, a slackline gig, with Andy Lewis, and that was super fun. And after rigging a line, that almost landed us in jail because the map was wrong on the national park boundary on Google. Like double chopper helicopter, the federales were at the door. It was bad. But while we were rigging it, it was really, really sketchy. The granite's decomposing, and Andy coined the phrase, "It's super good enough." So that's kind of how that started. So at this time, most of the videos are basically just basic Highline videos. That's what I first set out to start doing. And then we're like, well, there's a lot of content out there. It's just super hard to find. And so we wanted to put it in one place. And so Kim started putting together that information and we put it on a site called Slackademics, which no longer exists. And that's why I had slackline.com, which now no longer, well, the domain exists. I keep that because that's rad. But I officially, this morning, made hownottto.com the primary domain for our new website. But I digress. 11 months after I started, got 1,000 subscribers. I was happy with that. How many Highliners are there in the world? However, it took almost a year. So now we're in year 2, September 2017. Somewhere around this time, I realized that using the DSLR everywhere was a pain in the ass. And now I started to use phones, and I started to use both. In the studio, I would use the DSLR, but out when I'm trying to do things, I would use my phone. And now at the time, it was a Galaxy S7. It wasn't that great. So yeah, that's kind of how that transition to phones happened. In case you didn't know, I filmed with phones. And because I filmed with phones, I was now able to put out a video a week. My editing process was getting better. I could talk smoother in front of the camera. I knew more about what I was talking about. And phones are so much faster and lighter. And if you see the Zoom meeting I did with 3 other YouTubers who use cameras, Jan Camus does not use a camera anymore. He uses a phone. And everyone's like, wow, especially with these new iPhones, they're like, you could really get 90% of the quality you're looking for with just a phone. Now, early in mid-2018, we are kicking ass. We are establishing bigger lines in Yosemite. We're traveling to Iceland and establishing lines, and we are preparing to get married. Kim and I moved out of the 2-bedroom, 1-bath duplex I was living in and moved into a 3-bed, 2-bath, and I completely remodeled the thing. And we planned a difficult wedding, and I never missed a Wednesday. That was hard. I'm stressed thinking about it. And I got a lot going on right now. When I moved into the house, I was able to redo my studio. My original studio wall was just the gear wall I already had, and people liked that, so I did the white pegboard that you see in a lot of my videos, and that sucked because I wanted to use that gear. And if you go to Yosemite and use the gear, you have a blank wall. And it's like I had to either film before I packed or unpack really quickly so I could film. And that's why I kind of just put historical stuff on here now instead of stuff I actually use. Now, it was an additional 11 months to get my second 1,000 subscribers. Growth is slow when you first start. It is so much like a hockey stick. And well, hopefully the hockey stick keeps growing for me here. November 2017 at GGBY, Kim and I got married on Andy's net. And it was right as outdoor weddings were going, popular. And it was, looked very different, yet felt very familiar and very shareable, which is the perfect formula for something going viral. And it went viral again and again and again and again. It didn't go viral until 2 months later. We were on our honeymoon in Belize, and our phones with the limited internet connection was blowing up. We had news people meeting us when we got back at the airport, and we were flying out to do interviews. It was crazy how many people saw it. In total, more than 220 million people saw our wedding. And that's crazy. Like, there's just not that many non-famous people getting married that get that many views. And at the time, I think I had less than 500,000 views on the channel. Now, this wasn't being seen on my channel. This was being seen as we freely gave it away on Matador Network, had 90 million on its own, and everybody else had just tons of views. And we were just freely sharing it, which is probably what helped make it, grow. So now we're in 2018, this second year of me doing this, and I get a Rock Exotica Enforcer. We want to see the forces on Highlines now. And so dynamometers are on the mind, and Andy comes and visits, and he brings his 4 dynamometers, and we do equalization as a myth, where we built anchors and put dynos on all the points. And this is where the nerd in me really started to take off. About the second year in, about 2.5 years in. Another big thing happened while Andy was visiting is we were all joking about how people treat slacklining like a religion. So we created the Church of Slacklife. We filed an official religion, not a church, a religion. And it was a super interesting social experiment That, oh, well, had different opinions people had. South America loved it. It was different yet familiar because it was a very Catholic-based theme through the Church of Slacklife. You get a mix with America on who likes it and who doesn't, who thinks it's funny. Some religious people are like, oh yeah, I get it, it's a joke. And then other people like don't like the fact we're bringing religion into what they love. And then the Europeans hated it. And so it was really interesting how clearly, like it was so geographically clear, statistically, how much people loved and hated it. And it's interesting how many feelings it brings up for people. And it was kind of like, instead of forming an LLC, the channel, I was just going to form a nonprofit. And it was going to be like, churches get a lot of perks. And so we ended up making this 2-week joke into a year-long project. And Kim wrote the Book of Slack, which was our Bible. And she did a lot of stuff for this Church of Slack Life. And it just, yeah, it's not something you really want to build your foundation on, is a joke church. If you ever never heard of the Flying Spaghetti Monster, similar to that. Now, because I'm treating this channel like a hobby and we're just really hyper-focused on highliners and we really don't care what people think at the time, we do sending all over my shirts and logos and stuff like that because, like, we just don't care. Like, man. But after somebody sent me a picture of their classroom watching my science videos, I was like, oh, didn't realize my audience was like 16-year-olds. I thought it was just like dirtbags in their van. So we've eliminated pretty much all the cussing on this channel. But at the time, I didn't mind being a little obnoxious. During this time, we created Slack Life Global, which was our effort to try to get more Slackline gigs because we wanted to do that more and turn what we loved into a job. One of the highlights of 2018 was flying out Scott Balcom to the Breathe Festival and getting a whole history lesson of just slacklining. He gave us this first prototype to a weblog. I can go into all the stuff on this gear. Is pretty cool. That is the first Highline ever. That's a piece of it. And so it's pretty special. And that was just really neat. Like, you put a lot of work in and then you get, I don't know, because if you care about this kind of stuff, it's pretty special. I did Burning Man that year, and just the way I thought kind of changed on people build up this beautiful thing and then tear it down, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be forever. And I mean, a lot of things stuck with me there. So I kind of bring that up, but it also sucked an enormous amount of time to set up our own camp. And I got to do that with Michael Meldner and Scott Hung again, who is why I started the channel. Now, sew and loops enter the Highline scene, and that eliminates having to use 4 web locks on both sides. You can just have a sew and loop and either a soft shackle or a shackle holding it. That saves a lot of weight and money and all that. So money, I spent tons of money getting my loops. But I wanted to get loops done here at the Lodi Jump Center because, like, they do that. But they wouldn't do that. Their machine quite wasn't good enough, and I tried over and over and over to get a place to do it for me. And so I ended up learning a ton about sew and loops. So I needed to brake test them. That's pretty much how this got started. I bought a hydraulic ram puller. I got 2 trees, and I set up a web lock on one side and a thing on this side. And then I got earlier that year, a 50,000 pound crane scale, which is what's over there. And it's kind of embedded in the system. I kind of keep it in because it's cute now. But you don't want a 50,000 pound dynamometer for something you're testing in the 5 to 10,000 pound range. So, lesson learned. However, I kept evolving the brake test because I needed to know more and more. When I did the sew and loops, I had to compare it to weblock to weblock. And that is when I realized, wait, webbing doesn't break at the MBS, or minimum braking strength. I was like, I called it maximum braking strength for the longest time because I thought that was the highest number you could get. No, that's the minimum number you get in a 3 sigma calculation. But with hardware, you'll get that because they test it the way you use it. But if you add a knot, or in this case, webbing in a web lock, you don't. And it was like, and a lot of people, they did the same, like, did that for them too. So now I'm on fire. Now I'm nerding out. And so I ended up building, go to a Tractor Supply store, and I got some really strong, inefficient, cheap pulleys. And I did a 2-to-1. to a 2 to 1, to a 2 to 1, to a 2 to 1. I had this really nice curve of trees that allowed me to pull with my van the tail of this really obnoxiously long pulley system that I could get up to like 30,000 pounds with the setup. That poor tree at the master point. It's still alive, don't worry. But I didn't, like, breaking stuff takes a lot of work, and I didn't know anything about it, and I just kind of like throw myself out there. And I zigzag towards, success is a bad word. I zigzag towards the end result. A fun fact is on my first test, it was my first week of owning the Galaxy S9, which is the first phone to have the super slow-mo feature, and it's the last phone to have the super slow-mo feature that works continuously. They changed the settings so it's in a fashion I can't use it anymore, so I just got super lucky to find this thing right as I started brake testing stuff. And that's why we have slow-mos today. It's what I still use, and I'll get into what we plan on doing in the future in a minute. Year 3 rolls around, September 2018. Now, October 2018, I have 5,000 subscribers. I'm in 216 countries. I have 500,000 views, which feels like a ton, and about 107 videos published. I did all of that in 2 years. So let me tell you what I did in the 3rd year. So what I ended up doing is leaving basics for highlining and realizing that we don't know much. Like, I hit this glass wall, and I wanted to push the wall into the common knowledge and research. There's always a few engineers that kind of know stuff, but like the rest of us don't. And so I created a wood prototype, and throughout the whole fall season of 2018, and made sure I liked how it would go. And then Larry, who helped me build my van partition wall, helped me build Slack Snap. And I wanted it to be long so I could brake test the length of anything I wanted. And I'm glad that it's this long, even though it could have been 15 feet long instead of 20 feet long. But for guessing what I needed, this worked out pretty good. And that's when I had the Costco winch on this side and our pulley system, because hydraulics are hard. So it's harder to pull those pulleys back and forth. So yeah, we upgraded. It just so happened that this Slack Snap machine would fit in my fancy garage at my house if I removed the counter. So I cut the counter shorter, put it next to the sink, and that's what you see in all the videos, is it fit in my garage. It was gonna be outside next to my house, which would have sucked. I was able to do so much more because that just accidentally happened. And I dove into other things like borrowing more of those line scales from Andy and testing different bolt patterns and coming up with the equilateral triangle bolt pattern that is more popular today for if you're doing more than 2 bolts, how to like equalize all of them. So we've got a whole playlist on that stuff. So November 2018 comes around. This is going to be at GGBY again. I set up the net, and it is my 1-year anniversary. And this is where I'm going to talk about my divorce. That is basically kind of when it ended. I got married real loud and got divorced real quiet. And it was pretty awkward for the next 2 years to get congratulated for your wedding. But we didn't string it out once we knew we weren't compatible. And now being apart for almost 3 years, we definitely were not compatible. It was a ton of fun for the 4 years we were together, but I don't know, some people, they'll string out something they know isn't right anymore. Doesn't mean you shouldn't try, but like, it was really clear it wasn't working. And we ended it super early enough. Splitting up or divorce, I don't know, divorce just seems so much worse, but either way, if you're with somebody for a long time and you're not with them anymore, it's hard. It is real hard, which will lead into the next section of the story. But I definitely don't regret it, and I think it was the right move. And so didn't really ever talk about it. Nobody really wants to hear that kind of stuff. Maybe people do. Maybe people want to hear the vulnerabilities. And I'll kind of incorporate some of those vulnerabilities here. But we'll skip forward real quick to Discovery Channel, so I don't have to come back to this later. They wanted the SpaceNet couple on the show. It's a, Highline specific show. It's called Pushing the Line. And of course they want drama that's TV, and it's very Highline related. And Kim and I decide to do the show. I haven't really seen her for a while before that. And it went well. They edited it in a way that made us look like we were like more awkward than we were. Of course, it's a little awkward, but like it wasn't as awkward as they made it look. And that was pretty much the first time our divorce was pretty public. Now the show I don't think got the views that I think they were hoping, or even I was hoping, but like a lot of people saw it. Enough people saw it. So yeah, it's kind of weird when you have cached videos and she's in them for the next 4 months and you're trying to get quietly divorced, but you're like really public as a couple. It's pretty hard to pull that apart. And I just dove into the nerdy stuff, which I'll go into here. But I don't think she's a bad person. It takes two to tango. It takes two to make it work. It takes two not to make it work. So yeah, it is what it is. As you can see more of the things unfolding here on the channel I'm about to share, not all things worked out. Not all things work out in life. I'm willing to take the risk if they seem like they have a lot of potential to dive into it. And if it doesn't work, that's okay. I learned a ton. I would not regret doing it again if I knew the outcome of it. So this is the segue to, I had an open door policy at my house because I didn't want to live by myself with my 2 cats. And I had, I think, 100 people in 2019 when she moved out January 2019. But 100 people stay at my house throughout the year. Some for 1 day, some for 6 weeks. And honestly, it was really fun having a Slack house. I was kind of over it by the time, you know, the Rona started. So that kind of worked out. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. I had a lot more net positive than net negative of having that many people in your house. Now, everyone handles emotionally difficult things differently. Some people completely shut down. Clearly, I'm not that guy. I just dive in harder and work more. And, you know, it's great not to feel things. But I ended up scripting Highlining 101, how to use a highline that's already set up. And I used all my friends that were visiting regularly to help me film that. And I was trying to make a course, trying to sell it. And this is where things that we built up for the last 2.5 years are going to unravel for the next 2 years. And yeah, the Highline course is out and available now, but like I was trying to sell it. That didn't work good. I paid people to help me make it. That didn't work that good. And so I also put out the Bolting Bible in March of 2019, the first version. And I was trying to put everything online in one place, kind of like this Slackademics vibe of all the information on this one topic in a format that's easy to understand. Just having a database on a website kind of sucks. And that's why Slackademics is kind of like didn't work. But I figured if I wrote it into a book format and linked to everything to where it was relevant in like a story format, it would be better. And so I spent 2 years researching, noting all that. In 2016, I bolted the rostrum, and that caused a lot of controversy. And so I guess I can enter Sean Snyder in there. Sean Snyder did not like that, and he was like, "You don't know what you're doing." And I'm like, "Yes, I do. I did research." And I couldn't defend myself super good enough. So I started doing more research and realized I didn't know enough. But I learned a ton doing my research, and the Bolting Bible was a result of that. So this was also in theme with the Church of Slack Life, so you can kind of see where that religious theme is kind of, you know, pretty consistent. Now, just to give you reference, I was super religious. I really don't want to go into how religious. Super. So, yeah, a mild Coke version of the Bolting Bible as me holding back. So, in April 2019, I did my first big experiment, and I did it with Matt McMillan. We set up a 200-meter long Highline at CRG, and we cut one side, the main, to see what would happen to the backup, how much force there would be, because bigger Highlines, like if they're too big, like the previous fall, we set up a 300-meter continuous piece. And I'm like, if the main fails, you're going to drop like a while, and we didn't know. And I love answering those kinds of questions. And so there was a lot to unpack. We're cleaning up, and this guy helped us load our car. Enter Bobby Hutton. He was telling me that he recognized me from the channel and that he read the Bolting Bible. And I was like, "What? You're a climber. What are you doing reading the Bolting Bible? That's for Highliners." And he's like, it's on Mountain Project. I'm like, what's Mountain Project? Mountain Project didn't exist when I started climbing, so I never needed to look it up. It was like Super Topo forums when I started. So, yeah, that's how I met Bobby, which leads to a lot of stuff I did. And also, around this time, I was doing a lot of things, like going to Brazil and met Mateus, who translated the Book of Slack and the Bolting Bible. I also went to Hawaii and we rigged on a volcano, and that was very interesting to start applying these science projects to these other locations. The Hawaii project's now enlisted video, might be in the description. And all at the same time, very early in 2019, Slack Enov sent me this new way, if you crisscross a soft shackle, that you can connect segmented highlines. Segmented highlines weren't new, but it was very specific to Y2K webbing. So now I realize, wow, you can just do one single simple loop, which is what all webbing is coming out with now, because I pursued getting loops on all my gear, but now I can connect, if I cut them into 50-meter segments, I can only take what I need, and people around the world can now connect their pieces with their pieces, if everyone has the same setup, and rig giant highlines without having to buy a $10,000 piece of webbing for one project. So I was like, whoa, the potential of this is great. And I had Andy's spider silk that I bought for the wedding net. I spent like, what, $5,000 on it. Irreplaceable. Spider silk's not made anymore at this point. And I cut it. And I was one of the first people to cut all their webbing, 100% of their webbing. And remember, really long continuous pieces of webbing were precious at this point. And I push Enov splits super hard, and how to do the backup extenders and how to tape them. And during this time, I got into this soft shackle quick link war with rad slacklines. And because like soft shackles are still like not 100% adopted by Europeans yet. And what's funny is all this stuff kind of trickles in over time. So I'm still testing better Enov split systems. Now I'm going to take 4mm soft shackles, double wrap, putting your loops right next to each other, and then Wing them. And yeah, always working on stuff. Now Kim has left, and so Slackademics, it was kind of hard to maintain. There was no feedback loop. I wasn't getting clicks or views or likes or engagement or anything. And I put out so much content at this point. It was like, you know what? I've got enough content out there. If somebody finds this channel, they're going to know enough to do what they need to do. Otherwise, they can go look up the 2 or 3 other resources. So I ended Slackademics. And the Church of Slack Life, I was like, well, if she's not going to maintain it as a complicated thing and she started, I wasn't going to try to learn that. I closed it. A year later, I opened up How Not To LLC, but at the time, I was just like, this is my hobby. I'm still painting houses. This is me just living the Slack life hard. And yeah, I just kind of ended those things. So we're constantly zigzagging towards where I'm at today. Now, I don't know how to candy coat this because I didn't give a shit. My stunts were getting cooler and cooler. I had Daniel Risteau fly by me while I was on a Highline in a really special spot, kind of as a tribute to Dean Potter, and because that was very inspiring to me. And then I did a soft shackle stunt, and then I was hanging on to rope swings. I was loosely tied in, but the fact that I was like risking ripping out my arms, that's my new party trick, is now hanging on to the rope swing. Rope swing free solo, not necessarily high on my bucket list anymore, but I was considering it. I got to join the 2-kilometer long project in asbestos, which is really cool as a guy who's not good at highlining, getting to be involved in the giant projects. And I, with a team of people, built in my living room, because remember, I had people coming in through my house all year long, 10 by 10 squares. I remodeled my house with anchors, and we weaved, I don't even remember how many squares, like 15 squares, 12 squares, and we made the GGBY net. And then we also had 4 wingsuiters fly through that. So lots of stunts were happening. A lot of innovation was being done. A lot of brake testing was being done. And Bobby and I are nerding out on bolts at this point. So we kind of write up a whole business plan, is a bad name for it, but a plan and I learned hydraulics. And I mean, it was not easy to learn hydraulics. Fluid goes in one side and pushes the piston. Fluid goes in the other side. Not that hard. I don't know why. Yeah. Anyways, everything I learned seems to be difficult. So I learned hydraulics, and then I spend 10 grand on bolts and the stuff I need to brake test stuff. And Larry built our Bolt Buster vertical tension puller. And so, like, I mean, I'm months into it at this point. And so by the end of that 2019 year, we are now busting bolts. Now in July of 2019, Matt Stoling, one of the people that was staying at my house occasionally, was gonna go big walling, and he kind of wanted a crash course. I was like, here, turn on the camera real quick. And I just spouted off everything on my wall for 45 minutes just because I knew the topic so well and what I hated and liked and disliked, because I know my system well. And when I do my system, it would get me to the top. 250,000 views. Like, it doubled the views of my channel. Like, it was like crazy this one video. And it didn't really dawn on me to continue making videos like that. You know that scene at the end of Dumb and Dumber where the big bus of beautiful women come by and looking for an oil guy? And they're like, you're in luck. There's a town right up there. I'm like, oh, views and big walls. You're in luck. There's other people you can learn it from. Anyways, that should have been we're at how not to. We zigzag towards success here. Somewhere in 2019, I end up getting the iPhone, which has a 0.5 lens, which means I can be about this far away from the camera, which means my audio is significantly better without using a mic. If I don't have wind, I don't want to have a cord and dealing with stuff while I'm doing stunts and whatever. And I always have a phone in my pocket. So the iPhone has revolutionized the fact that I can justify using a phone now. Even though I was doing it before, I still use the Galaxy S9 to film the slow-mos. So I'm a phone-only system at this point, and I have been still using the DSLR in my house. Until I moved here, I have not used the DSLR. Also, mid-2019, with my iPhone, I get a MacBook Pro, because if one change is good, two is better. Oh, and I got Premiere Pro, because, you know, learning a whole new software while trying to post videos every week is a brilliant idea. So, yeah, that was a really, really hard learning curve, because I was a PC guy. But I got it now, don't worry. September 2019, or 3 full years of doing this, I have officially got 1 million views and 9,000 subscribers. So it's pretty funny considering I got 71,000 now. But I was growing so slowly, and I was doing some cool stunts and science and all this stuff, but it was very Highline focused. We officially started breaking bolts at the end of 2019, and we were using Val's driveway, family friend who I have done some filming at, and I store some stuff there. Lady's been so supportive of what I've been doing, and we got to break up her concrete before she replaced her driveway. And so she was patient for months and months while we were doing this. And then eventually 2 or 3 months later, we went out to real rock, and we kind of realized that was tough. So like 6 months later, when I kind of redid stuff in the backyard, I put concrete in my backyard so we could conveniently break bolts. But I ordered 8 sack, and it wasn't hard like I wanted it. I don't know if I troweled it too much or too much water. I don't know. And it just spalled really bad, and it didn't do as good of a job as Val's driveway. So that was kind of a bummer, but then we were able to test a lot more stuff in it. So it wasn't like a complete loss, but it would have just been easier if I went outside to real rock. So around the end of 2019, I ended up rigging a 291 meter Highline by myself, and then I ended up tire swinging off of it. So I feel like my rigging, like I checked off a box in my mind. Now I still want to rig 1 mile by myself in a day. I still have some goals, but like I checked off a box, and so it makes sense why I started doing more of these climbing videos. So in January, I did a dog bone video to like a quick draw dog bone, and we broke this out, and that, boom, had a lot of views. And when we were doing bolt brake tests, which is starting to happen like more and more often, 30% bolts, 30% highlining, and then I started incorporating this climbing stuff, and every climbing video was getting 10x the views as the Highline videos. So I just kind of naturally followed that path and started making more and more of those. Early 2020, I started Juno Coffee with Nick, who was occasionally helping me with the channel, kind of like Bobby was. And yeah, so we officially got some freeze dryer machines, and we were kind of prototyping the system out in Virginia. And I'll get back to that chronologically when it makes sense. But the reason I thought instant coffee might be a nice pair with the brand of How Not to Highline is I didn't want to sell gear. I just didn't want to like compromise the independence I had from gear companies. But if I sold something completely separate that climbers, slackliners might buy, I thought coffee might be a nice thing. So early 2020, we went to Yosemite. We ended up getting a couple videos there, and we're slack snapping a lot of climbing videos. So they end up getting released right as the cerveza sickness happens. And so I end up getting a lot of paint jobs approximately a month later because all the helicopter money, and I was just painting exteriors. So I was super busy at work. And then the climbing stuff was going up because then people were bored at home. And so like I was starting to make content that people wanted to watch. So now the channel's actually growing, and the feedback loop of getting the views and subscribers, putting out certain content was actually starting to happen. Now we need more freeze dryers for Juno Coffee, but the preppers, the doomsdayers, they bought them all. So it's just so hard to get what we needed. So instead of just incrementally getting them until like we knew it worked, we had to basically order all of them. And then it took months and months and months to get it. And before we even received them all, we decided to move the location to California, to where I could be closer to the business because it was a lot of work. And we'll get back to more of that in a minute. April 2020, I get 20,000 subscribers. My mind is blowing. I'm larger than the other slackline channels at this point. I'm like, wow. And so I start doing the bolts and the climbing stuff, and I got slackline.com from Andy at a good discount. So I was on top of the world as a highliner. Now we test quad anchors and other stuff on the slab, not just bolts, but we went out to real rock, and instead of breaking, we did break some bolts, but we ended up brake testing cams and pitons and some other stuff in real rock in the middle of nowhere and boulders nobody cared about. And woo, those videos were huge. So at this point I've got, I think, 2 line scale 2s, and I'm realizing how convenient it is to have a line scale in my hand because I was always borrowing Andy's in the past. Rock Exotic Enforcers, after shock line is a myth, they're a little finicky. You bump them and they like start buzzing. You take them past 20 kilonewtons, which is kind of easy to do when you're doing what I'm doing, and it just stops working. And like the screen goes bad. They weren't what I needed. So I asked Andy, I'm like, yeah, I need more line scale 2s. He's like, I don't have any more. I was thinking about making another batch or making a better version because I already designed the line scale 3 with basically same body, different guts. It's faster and all the stuff. And I was like, all right, well, do that. And he's like, yeah, but I have to do a minimum of 1,000 units and I don't have $350,000. And I'm like, give me a week. So I said, tell you what, if you make it perfect, I'll help promote it. And what we can do is get crowdfunding investors to support it. That way, if you don't get the crowdfunding, you know you wouldn't sell them and it's not worth doing. And if you do get the crowdfunding, now you have, in this case, 150 investors at 2,000 a piece, and they get a free line scale for investing and all their money back as the unit sells. So I came up with that. And I figured now you have 150 salesmen because they're all motivated to see the product sell so they get their money back. So it ended up in 4 days and 2 Instagram posts, 1 YouTube video at the end of a YouTube video, which is like 10% the views. And the 2 Instagram posts, we raised $350,000. So now that's really exciting. However, now we have to wait for the line scale 3 to be produced. And so the first 150 units are done right now, but they're stuck in China. And Andy Riedrich made it faster than I originally asked. He made it remember what it's doing. So when I'm done rope swinging, I got to design it. Everything you see in this channel, I got to make the perfect all-in-one for what I do. And so I'm very excited about it coming out. I invested in 2 units, and then I invested in 5 more when I realized like how popular they were. But I don't get, I'm not part of that deal. So I just really, really, really wanted people to have access to good dynamometers if they want to learn this stuff. And then technically it's now going to help grow this channel. In 2020, I am now posting 2 times a week, and it's semi-sustainable. Usually Saturdays were reserved for less fun stuff like bolting. I'd still do occasionally slacklining, and then I was focusing more on climbing. And because bolting is such a thing for me, and we changed out the bolts at Elephant Rock and finished some stuff at Taft and the Rostrum, it was like the last place in highlining that needs to be fixed in Yosemite, so I feel like I've contributed to the area I started at, is the Lost Trail Spire. So I grab Alonzo and his team, which is the next group of people to really be pushing the sport in Yosemite. And I was like, hey, let's put in fresh bolts in the Lost Arrow Spire. Now, we did it pretty nice, except there is no regulation. And so we didn't consult anybody before doing it. I didn't feel like I needed to. And this all pissed off Sean Snyder. And so he ends up doing, he ends up being really mad for a while, and then nothing happens till next year, which we'll get to in a bit. But yeah, so we do a video. It got 110,000 views on this video of Lost Arrow Spire. And I realized, while we're on the topic, we can't just bolt whatever we want. Like, we were really, really conscientious on what we're doing and thought it out and like really cared and hand drilled everything. We didn't need to use power drills because we had 6 20-year-olds. But yeah, it's nice to like have more of a community decision made about such iconic areas. And I think that is like the thing that ruffled people's feathers. And so I definitely think that could be considered more in the future. Not every area is so iconic you need to have everybody's opinions before you go do it. But if you're going to do something super epic, yeah, I could see, you know, consulting rangers and OGs and stuff before you do it. Now, people are... And so our painting business, construction, is thriving. However, the laws are getting a little wonky. And the eviction moratoriums are making owning rentals less fun. I own a duplex, and my parents owned a couple duplexes, and they wanted to get out. They were tired of the rental business. And that is a problem if a bunch of people stop having rentals. But I digress. Let's stay on the topic. I basically like, well, if you're going to sell yours, I want out of mine, because mine is not slack life. I could have invested in the S&P 500 and got virtually the same returns without debt and without toilets and tenants. So I wanted to be a little bit more mobile at this point. I'm single, I'm traveling, slack life, YouTube, right? I just don't want to feel like I'm locked down. Still have the painting business at this point. So my parents sell their properties, I sell my property, and they start questioning why they're in Lodi. And I was questioning that for them. I was questioning that for me. And I was like, huh. All this happened when Discovery called and said, hey, want to be on a TV show? Andy recommended me to be on the Pushing the Line show that he's been working on for 2 years with the producers on creating. So, man, I really wish it was like this year or next year. That would have just been so much less stressful. But I was too curious. I didn't want to have FOMO, and so I said yes. So last fall, I was doing Pushing the Line Discovery Channel while planning on selling my house and changing a complete lifestyle. We've had our painting. My parents have lived in Lodi, my mom, for 5 generations. We've had our painting business for 40 years. I've been in it for 20 years. This isn't a small move. And we're making these decisions right as like I'm putting out 2 videos a week, Discovery Channel, and I'm like, you know, Rona's happening, all while the machines that we finally got for Juno run loud and hot. And they basically kind of burn up. So it wasn't a lack of being able to sell the coffee, even though it wasn't like super popular on the channel. like the line scale 3s were popular, but the coffee wasn't. But that's okay. We were selling. Nick was selling it. That's not the problem. The problem was how to produce it. It takes a lot of energy to produce instant coffee. The freeze dryers, it takes like 36 hours for those things to crank it out. It takes more than just a home machine times 8 of them to produce what you need. So after 4 years, September 2020, I basically am completely changing my life. The Juno business I've got lots of money in is going phew. And I'm basically going on to do a TV show about my divorce, which I clearly love talking about. So it's like, I was stressed. I was trying to get my house kind of ready. So when I got back, let's go into discovery for a little bit. Rona did not help the logistics of a logistically complicated shoot. 12 or 15 of us cast members in basically three sets of official camera teams is not enough. So it was really hard to do the show. It was really stressful. And I ended up, they call me the rigging nerd on that show, which was very nice because I was more like the rigging bitch. Because under that much stress, it's like if we don't get these highlines up, and the weather was turning on us, the time we had to do Castleton was super short. If we don't get highlines up, we're not going to have a highline show. Like the show would just not get aired. And all of us spent a lot of energy to make the show happen. So I remember that time period being a very stressful time period. Really neat opportunity, but I wouldn't do it again if I could do it again because the amount of stress I was under. I never felt physical things from stress before. I'm usually pretty wound up, high-strung guy. I can handle it. That nearly got me. Because a week after I got home, basically ended November, I took a month of prep, a month of doing the show, and like trying to recover from that. My painting business never missed a Wednesday. And so I was just putting out trick line videos at that point because I banked 6 of them, and the algorithm hated me for it. And so my channel just flatlined. And I was just like, I'm quitting my job for this. And like, anyways, I still had the vision. So I set my house to move, and I listed my house for 15% more than my neighbor did. And real estate agent was like, I don't think that's going to appraise. And I was like, do it anyways. And it sold in 4 days because I just knew the market was hot and I needed that price to make it worth selling. And the price is actually around that price today. I felt like I was rewarded for my remodel. However, everybody else on the street who didn't remodel was now getting that price because mine was the new basis for what everyone's getting in that neighborhood. You're welcome. So while I was at Discovery in October, November, my parents ended up moving without me being able to help them. And then I was moving without them being able to help me. The timing was horrible. And I ended up moving a lot of my stuff to Val's. She has a shop and she let me just put a lot of stuff in, and I've been shrinking it since. And then Larry let me use their spare room here to stay when I'm here. And then I have my lab here. And he cleared out all the stuff he had in this room. And it's like he didn't have space for this stuff. And he cleared out half of this room. I got to put this up against the wall, which ended up meaning I could do my studio or gear wall behind it. It actually worked really, really better. And we ended up doing carpet in here for sound purposes. And we're going to keep making things better. But I had to set this lab up because most of my videos are brake tester at this point. So before I go visit my parents in Idaho for Christmas, I end up selling my house, moving. Oh my God, it's so stressful. And getting this lab set up. And in November 2020, I hit 35,000 subscribers. So I went, phew, and then I kind of plateaued from trick lining, and then it picked back up. So now we're at the beginning of 2021 in the story. I'm realizing Highlining 101, which I made free after trying to sell it, isn't getting seen, and it's not that I need views on it. I'd get views if I break a carabiner. I just want people to learn this stuff if they want to see it. And so I basically put it in 7 compressed videos on the direct channel and not 80 tiny videos on an unlisted channel that you'd have to go through a textbook to find them. So it's available on the channel now. It's this whole own playlist. And I realize I'm a video first guy. Everything goes on this channel, and if it ends up on Instagram or on the website, it starts here first. And that's how most people are gonna see the content we make. So now that I have my lab here, I want better load cells. I don't want crane scales anymore. Crane scales they don't give you graphs and they're slow. And so LabJack was so generous, they gave me 2 T7 Pros, and Marcus Bird helped me for basically half of 2019 putting it together, and it's a very customizable product. So you have your S-beam load cell, the electricity goes in and out, but you need the interface, right? And then it spits it out to the computer what the voltage differences is. So you can measure the forces. Well, it's so customizable, like it's like Linux. You can do a lot with Linux. You gotta know how to use Linux. So yeah, he mailed it to me, and it didn't have software. It wasn't the plug and play product I realize I need. I need frictionless in order to pump out content. I can't keep diving into all these projects. I just need something I can plug in. So I ended up spending thousands of dollars on Lodestar sensors in order to get a 10,000 hertz, 20,000 pound S-beam, which, by the way, I think we solved the problem. I drove all the way to the Bay Area, spent hours with them, and we might have discovered that where the magnetic fields are coming from. So yeah, get into that later. So Jetze in Netherlands is helping me with the software for LabJack T7 Pros. I'm basically going to keep working on them, but I like load cells. I want to collect all the different kinds, but I needed a solution that would work. We've got one. It's literally perfect timing to have the Lodestar system work when I get, basically this is up, it needs to be stabilized. And then the line scale theories will show up. So it all kind of is converging into this one point, which is pretty exciting considering I've spent a year working on all this. So now I've sold everything. I'm sitting on a pile of cash. Feel bad for me, I know. And I'm not invested in an inflation-ridden world. And I'm like, So now investing is like the hottest thing on my mind. And so I'm like, well, I love sharing what I'm learning. And I have a background of like, I didn't get here because I was a sloth, of how I got to this point and where I'm gonna go. Kind of like the same point I was at in highlining. Pretty good, still had a lot to know. And yeah, so I try to put out 2 how not to invest videos. And I try to put them on this channel. And there's enough feedback from the audience is like, this isn't the place for that. And then the algorithm's like, nope. And killed my views for a while. I was like, okay. The CRMs, by the way, the dollar per 1,000 views, is 5 times more in investment channels. So while I learn how to invest, it would be nice to be able to monetize videos because the ad revenue is actually relevant to that. I get like 1 million views a month, and I'm getting like $2,500, $2,000, $2,200 a month in ad revenue. It would be $10,000 if I was making a financial channel. So like, I love the misconceptions in investing. And so I actually have a strategy for how not to invest that actually might work with me already doing this. Now, I've already spent about 2 years researching this stuff, so I knew how to exit the rental property business because I didn't want more rental properties, but I needed to continue to invest. Dollar cost averaging into the S&P 500 is what everyone says, but I'm not quite sure that's going to work for the next 10 years because it just went up. And it can't keep doing that, theoretically. And I love cryptocurrency, but I don't think 100% should be put in that. And so basically, I'm going to try every strategy simultaneously. And I'm going to film, not just like me explaining it, but me doing it. So a minute every day or a minute every time I look at the strategy over 6 months. Explain like a quick version of how it goes and like what it feels like to do that strategy and an end result of a realistic thing. I'm not trying to sell anybody a course. I just want people to see whether or not this thing you learn on YouTube works. And so I'm very excited about how that channel is going to evolve over the next 5 years of me doing that one. But I don't want it to take away from me doing at least 3 videos a week on this because I totally can, especially if I eliminate the painting business. In February, I went caving with Rachel Saker and I got to try a sport I've never done before. And my skills kind of transferred over from big walling and slacklining, super good enough. And so I got to experience a really neat thing, and I got to bring in an additional sport into the channel, and it kind of opened my mind to what else could I do. Around March, I rented a room from Andy Lewis so I can stay in Moab whenever I have time to be there. And so that has been very useful because it makes me want to go there more. And I also can bounce back and forth basically between Yosemite and Moab, which is going to allow me to do more of this. And that's allowing me to do other sports because I'm there. In March 2021, I brought up the drop tower. I built the prototype for it, got people's feedback, which was very useful. It's pretty cool. It's really tall. We'll like stabilize it and add little things to it and put climbing holds all the way up to the top. I'm really, really excited. But it's, you know, it's been 6 months. And if I look at this, I'm like, wow, that looks like it would take at least 6 months to build because it's big and it's custom and it's difficult. I mean, I could build a second one in a week, but there's just, I don't know, it's a zigzag trying to get this thing up as cheap as possible. If I had $100,000, it'd be a different story, but I'm trying to keep this channel cheap. I can't just hemorrhage cash while I'm literally quitting my income source. Now, I moved back in December, but it took till March for me to purge all my old videos because I'm that backlogged on videos, which is how I keep consistent content coming out. But the downside of that is any major changes, it looks really funny having stuff like trickle and release of me at the old house when I'm technically not there anymore. So earlier this spring, I took all the bolts and hardware we ever broke, the metal stuff that looks cool, to Steve at Scorpion Acres so he could make a coffee table like Bobby and I have talked about for so long up to this point. And I knew I didn't have time, and I saw that he did them, and I was like, oh, will you do this for me? I want to surprise Bobby for helping me so much. And basically, Bobby ends up getting hurt in May and falling quite a ways and getting all mangled up. And I wanted to surprise him with the table while he was down on his luck. But it wasn't done yet. And then just a little while ago, his house burnt down. So it really worked, which really sucked, but it really worked out that I just got this stuff from Steve. I'm actually going to put the bolting thing on the wall here for a second part of the studio. And then Bobby got the table with all the carabiners in it. That was really, really pretty. That's been a project for 2 years. We wanted to do it in 6 months of planning, and that just now came to fruition, which I have the live video that we did is where you can see the table and me surprising Bobby with it. It was really, really neat. In April this year, I went up El Capitan just to see the Highline that Ryan Sheridan set up, and we ended up filming how not to haul and how not to cook on El Capitan. And while we're up there, we're just like, oh, let's throw another quick video on this. Let's do how not to poop. This is hilarious. People need to know it. And because it was kind of so fun, we all had fun making it, that I expedited the video. And I ended up releasing it towards the end of April, and boom. So my channel is pretty stagnant at the time because of the trick line videos and the how not to invest videos and just more bolts breaking. Like we're getting nichey, too nichey. And then boom. We're talking 500,000 views on a video in a very short period of time is insane for my channel. And so I was getting not just 1,000 subscribers a month, which is real slow growth when you're at 40, to 10,000 subscribers a month. I'm hitting 1.2, 1.5 million views a month at this point. And then we had drama. Sean Snyder was doing stuff in Smith Rock, and then, yeah, lots of drama around Sean Snyder. And so, basically, that helped technically the algorithm, but we ended up doing a video in Yosemite where I actually meet him for the first time, and that had mixed reviews. I want to cover that real quick. It's nice that two people who haven't got along are finally trying to get along. And yeah, it's not nearly as fun as having Doug Robinson on the channel and sharing his awesome history stories. But I think it's really important that Sean has a lot to teach. And he's not good at it. And he knows that. And I've got this platform here. And if I give him just a small piece of the platform, then maybe we can all get along and learn something, and he can feel validated for the things he has done. He has done things that aren't cool. But what could happen if we give somebody a second chance and we get off on the right foot? It's really hard to get off the wrong foot and onto the right foot. But I want to use this channel to try, instead of just continuing to be at some weird bolting war. It's just not worth it. So there's so much drama in bolting. I think this is honestly one of the best slack snap experiments to see if two bolters who don't get along can get along. So just bear with me through this experiment of seeing if we can make Sean Snyder shine in a way that makes him just really honestly thrive. He's a really good bolter, really energetic, and he could do as much good as he's done bad. Like, he could be such a good asset to the community. So need your patience on that. So between poop videos, Sean videos, and then Discovery Channel releases their thing. So for after like what, 7 months, they finally released Pushing the Line. So I'm expecting, fame. And so I release 3 videos a week, and they're like good videos, not Monday updates. They're like all good videos, back to back to back to back. And so I'm just growing. And my channel grew. I don't know if it was from Discovery, because we were on Discovery Plus. So it was like on an app no one really has. Now, it's good, maybe not for the first week if they do that, but it's good over years because the content's like relevant for years. But yeah, I don't think we got the fame we were hoping. But hey, it's highlining. Kind of could have told them that just from my analytics from YouTube. But I had a self-fulfilled prophecy of my channel would grow, and so I did things to make it grow. And so it grew. In July, I hit 60,000 subscribers, and just a few weeks ago, I hit 70,000 subscribers. And so if I can continue putting out content that people want to see, like the more people want to see, it's not like I'm compromising the content here. I mean, the poop video was helpful, by the way. Then, I see this channel growing, and branching out into the other sports will help broaden the audience, which will also help it grow. And doing more big wall videos will also help it grow. Now, right before Bobby got hurt, we ended up breaking 8 videos worth of bolts. And so I was slowly releasing that. And then he kind of hobbled to Lodi and kind of was in the lab with me, and we made more videos together. So he was actually consistent through the whole thing, even through his injuries and the fire. He's just been a really, really, really core part of this channel, basically since I met him. Now, fun fact is Bobby was actually featured in another channel that has over 1 million subscribers, and it's so weird to see Bobby on another channel. I'll put that link in the description below. His Ghost Town Living, and he helped put in a sport climbing route with the guy there that owns the town and has an amazing cliff there. Now, at this point, the only videos that get under 10,000 views, slackline videos. That's probably why I'm sitting on a California record and a world record Highline footage, because I'm like, the amount of energy it takes to edit those things. And it's not going to grow the channel. And growth is pretty essential for me quitting my painting business 100% this year. Then January, I basically stopped painting, but I kept work in front of my employee. I was expecting it to just kind of die. And he kept doing good. And people were happy and kept asking me to paint more for them. And I was like, okay, I'll give you a price. And then he would do it. And I don't charge very much more than I pay him. It was like putting the whole business on a shelf. So in case I changed my mind and wanted to go back to it, I could. So I don't live off very much. So it actually pays for my bills while I'm transitioning into investing properly. And while this channel, hopefully the ad revenue can get above $3,000 a month. So I know I can live off $3,000 a month. That I'm not worried about. And then the donations will always go back to this channel. I don't care if it's $1 million a year, 100% is going into this channel. I'm not going to live off donations. That left a sour taste in my mouth from religion. I understand running a church is a lot of work. It's really hard to have a job and do that at the same time, but it's definitely a conflict of interest in my mind. I don't want that to be the case here. I can really improve the channel with funds we get. And if we get no donations after I pay for some of this stuff, I can still probably make content. And it just won't be as good. You know, the more money, the better it'll be. Now, since I could not keep up with 3 edits a week, even though I have the content for it, I technically am sitting on the footage for it. I just cannot edit that. So I started doing Monday update videos. And I had no idea how much, well, I knew I talked a lot. I had no idea how much I had to say because there's so many irons in the fire that I'm doing here. Like Cam Crusher 2.0 is so rad. I can make a whole video about that. And they're quick, they're easy, and it kind of makes you guys follow this God knows how long this video is, this whole story as I go. So we don't need a 10-year anniversary video. But yeah, so I'm still posting technically 3 times a week. And I plan on continuing that. Now, I did share that Monday update video with the Zoom collab I did with Ben from Hard is Easy, Josh from Climbing Beta, and Jan Camus from Bliss Climbing. Awesome 4-way chit chat. It's really fun hanging out with other YouTubers because our lives have a very similar vibe going for them. So that was fun. I liked putting that on the Monday video. Don't know if I would do that all the time. If I did it all the time, I'd have to make Tuesday update videos because I need to update you guys on stuff. So it's been 5 years today when I release this. And it is like we have over 300 videos out, over 400 bolts broken, a 200-page bolting Bible is coming out within 2 weeks. There's like 50 pages for a caving section Rachel Saker has been working really hard on. And it's going to continuing to get better. And we have now the Cam Crusher with real rock. We've got our load cell working. We got our drop tower up. The line scale 3s are made. They just need to be shipped. And we've done over 2,500 brake tests in this thing. Now, I stopped recording the slack snap brake tests in the chart because they're going to be in videos. I don't break anything that doesn't end up in a video. And in the video, we put in the description. The description has everything. Video first is the content. Has everything in the video. So I don't hold you hostage. We have timestamps in all our other videos, maybe not this one. We're trying to make these videos a real quick resource for you or entertainment, edutainment, if you like the videos themselves. Now I have multiple iPhones for audio tricks I can do with multiple phones with dual coupled angles, and when I'm in the mountains I can back them up to each other, so in case I lose my phone again with Lost Arrows Spire footage, I won't cry. I am currently sitting on right now 5 climbing videos, 6 highline videos, 3 sailing videos, 3 canyon videos, and 3 caving videos. Wow. But as you can see, I cannot continue bidding and following up with jobs. I've spent the last week and a half painting every day until at least noon in order to get my scheduling crisis done, which I don't have time for that. It comes at a cost of something else. And the channel goes on, it just goes slower, it grows slower, but I really, really want to put the energy towards this. And so I'm going to go completely income free from painting. That's weird. Starting like January. I'm booked solid until December. Those jobs might bleed into January, but somewhere around there, my last job is actually somebody who watches this channel. So that's really cool. I see the light at the end of the tunnel for this drop tower. I still need a dummy. I still need to put a shredded rubber tire and put drainage here at the bottom. I need to get climbing holds, perfect descent. It's going to give me the automatic belay devices so I can like climb up there, just lean back, come back down. And yeah, it takes a lot to break stuff. I don't need just the tower. So it could be 2 or 3 months before I'm like actually producing content. But then when I am, it'll be like every other week will be a drop tower test. In 2022, I won't be dealing with load cells, or I won't be devoting a lot of energy towards figuring them out. I won't be devoting my energy towards brake test machines because they'll be working. I won't be devoting myself to the painting business. I won't be struggle busting with the investment stuff so much. I basically have my plan. I just need to do it, and I want to film the process now. Yeah, like 2022 is looking really, really awesome. And I'm very intentional about what projects I say yes to, because I know I can only do so much. I know that's hard to believe, that I'm learning balance in my life, but at least I'm trying. We might actually rent a slow-mo camera, like the slow-mo guys, like the really expensive, really slow ones. And Mark Payton might come down, and he's got lenses maybe for it. And he would like be a dedicated film person for drop tests and even slow pull tests. And we would just like batch film over a couple days. So it would be worth renting it and try to get that price down to about $100 per episode if I amortize the cost per the episode. So yeah, every episode generates about $300 to $400 in donations. So like I try to keep editing under 150, and I try to keep the costs under 100, and because there's always the soft costs. Soft costs. There's always costs. So yeah, like we won't be hemorrhaging cash next year, hopefully. We will continue to polish the Bolting Bible. I want to add a Highline section and eliminate the Highline centricness out of the Bible, and it's just be like basic facts, then climbing, Highline, caving, and all the other reasons, canyoning, that we would use bolts. So you have like the specifics and then the general ideas. Like, it's not that hard. Use stainless steel, practice before you go out. There, you just read the Bolting Bible. But yeah, I don't really want to print it. I did an Instagram questionnaire, and you know, a lot of people said they would buy it. And after I've had some feedback, some people message me and they're like, dude, your time is worth so much more than that. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. Now I do have a volunteer who's willing to design the book, and it's like rad that he would put in the risk of doing it and only get paid if they sell. But we also would know that they would sell before he went through that much work. However, it's a lot more than just designing it. And it'd be like professionally designed. I have to get permission. I have to hunt down every photo, get permission, take new photos of ones I can't, give credit to all the ones that are, it's like I didn't, it was just a journal of my bolts that I kind of it evolved into this. I don't know where everything came from. In order for me to make it as if I'm going to print it, I can't just have screenshots all over the thing. So it's not a problem if it's just a free PDF. But oh my God, as soon as you start charging for stuff, it just gets into a whole new realm of like, even just payment processing. Like, it takes time to, that's why I don't sell anything. I barely do affiliate links. And all it is a link. I don't even chase down the money for the links. They message me later and go, hey, you want some money? I'm like, yeah, it'd be great. So it doesn't make sense for me to spend the time I could be drop bean stuff on this tower, printing a book where 80% of the value of the book comes from the links you can click to go to the 75 videos we'll have on bolting or all the other resources online about the topic. Because like, it would be nice to have artistic stuff and drawings on everything, but it would take so much more of me to finish this project that basically I feel has held me down, because I just always go to bed at night thinking, oh, the Bolting Bible needs updating. I'm gonna update it here. Rachel's almost done with her part. I'm gonna get done with my part. Brent's gonna help me write the canyon section. Just do a super good enough version. Right now, there's just not good information out there. This is out there. I would rather grow this channel, doing big wall videos, break tests, figuring out what people want to know. There's so many sports out there asking me to break test stuff. I've got collabs with rafters and arborists and circus people. I want to do that stuff. This is what I do for fun. I don't get paid for it. Like, I could make hundreds of thousands of dollars more doing something else. But I want this, the number one thing is this is supposed to be fun. And that Bolting Bible isn't fun. Now, if somebody wants to do 110% to make that thing printable, knock yourself out. I'll fully support that. But I can't do it. And that's the decision. To bring you through that decision-making process, that's how I'm thinking in the future. Is that break test worth it? Is that collab? Do I have time for that? What is the best value of my time? Because I am still going to run this as a 1.5-man show with my one editor in India, and I might get somebody on the back end to help me more with descriptions after I learn how OSB works and film what I'm doing so I can show people what I need. And one strategy for me to grow is to break test requests from people who already have an audience, people who are already like in the top of their sport, people already with YouTube channels, and I'm basically their lab, send them the footage and they can show it on their channel. And then I'm a resource for them instead of them all trying to have their own break test machines. That works business-wise. So I'm sure you can see now that How Not to Highline is completely dead. It's just, I can't get, I don't think I can get to 100,000 subscribers if I stop making climbing content. Highlining, I'm going to continue to make a couple highline videos here and there. I do want to perfect the Z-drags for big highlines. But this channel isn't going to grow the way I want it to, and we're not going to be able to help everyone break their gear fear in all these sports where their life depends on gear, not just highliners, if I keep it at How Not to Highline. And if you love doing canyons and you want to say, hey, check out this canyon video I saw, just go over to How Not to Highline. You're like, huh? Huh? You're like, that doesn't make sense. Yeah, just go to slackline.com. Huh? It's just instantly alienating for people and hard to share. And you don't want things to be hard to share. So How Not To encompasses everything. And I'm so grateful that I got youtube.com/hownotto. And I got hownotto.com and hownotto.org. So happy. I found that auction literally hours before it closed. And I just now made it the primary domain today. So How Not To is the brand. How Not to Highline I did for 5 years, like I said, and I plan on doing How Not To for 5 more years. In about 3 months, realistically, I'll probably have my first How Not to Invest video out. 3 months after that, they'll start actually getting good. So if you want to see me lose money, make some money, then yeah, go check out How Not to Invest. The intro that I have now, the audio will get better on it. Mark Payton was super gracious in helping me get that done like at 10 o'clock at night before he went on a 2.5-week trip. But that used to be just a bunch of stunts that I was like excited about. But now it's everyone's included. Ryan Sheridan with Big Walls, Brent for Canyon, Rachel with Caving, all the people that have kind of helped me develop this, like, wow, I could do these other sports. And Andy with base jumping. Like, yeah, that intro has a lot of meaning in it. There's a lot of intentionality in there, and it's exactly 10 seconds. So if you're on your phone, you can just double tap and skip it. So a lot of it's on purpose. Otherwise, I would just have to do a half-second intro with a little doo and start the channel, but I don't really want to. Anybody new coming on the channel, I want them to know there's a lot here to discover. Today, I'm at over 71,000 subscribers and over 10 million views on the channel, if not 11 million by now. And I'm not aiming for 100,000 anymore. I'm aiming for 1 million. I feel like 1 million might feel small when I get to that goal, but I definitely want to set my goals higher than I used to. I want to be intentional about reaching those ones. And I really appreciate you guys coming along for the journey. Thank you for watching my journal all the way to the end of something I plan on watching every year in September to remember where all this came from. Cheers.